Okay, so we'll begin just by handing out the job application and hold off on filling it out. We're all going to fill it out together because it's more difficult than you think. So first of all, this is a career education assignment, which is a whole separately weighted category in this class. So it's a big part of your grade, so you want to make sure that you do it correctly. If you're doing great in the class, this will make sure you continue to do great. If you're not doing great, this is a great opportunity for you to quickly and easily boost your grade. So pay attention on this. And again, no matter what you pursue in life, having these skills, experience, and having your career portfolio physically is going to help you get a job. Students, go out there and use it. You absolutely could, sure. So the career education is again, no matter what you pursue in life, I strongly believe that these skills and experience are going to make you exponentially more successful. Even if you have a job, you already have a job, these skills can help you advance your career. It'll help you go to your boss and ask for a raise. The better you state your case, the more money you'll make. And that's what I want. So that is career education and our portfolio. So we're going to create a resume, which we may or may not get to today, but we definitely will get to this week. We're going to do the job application first, which is an application for Jamba Juice. We are going to create a letter of introduction, which is a letter that's just going to talk about yourself briefly, introduce yourself, and will be one of the first pages of your portfolio. We're also going to have a list of references. So you want to have 3 to 4 people or so that a potential employer can call, and these people are going to say nice things about you. So I'm sure you have 4 people that believe in you. Absolutely, yeah. All right. And then at least one letter of recommendation. And this is a pretty simple letter that ideally not a family member, but somebody you've worked for, or maybe you did volunteer work for somebody. I believe it's a requirement to graduate that everybody should have done some community service hours. So there's something that you should have done for somebody, and the least that they can do is write you a letter of recommendation in return. So we'll get one of those as well. And then we're going to have some samples of our work. So we'll take maybe some of your renders or some of the more impressive things that we've done in this class and put that in as some sample of the work that you created if you've been in another ROP class, or even if you just have something personally, you're a good artist, or there's anything that you feel might display your skills and experience as a sample of the work that you can produce. We can put that in your portfolio as well. All right. So if we get our job application, and is there one extra, Daniel, or did you hand them all out?
Yeah, I had it all.
Oh, okay.
I did have one more.
Can I have one myself? Okay, so a couple rules in filling out a job application. First of all, needs to be in pen or typed. Unfortunately, our printer doesn't work in this classroom, so everyone's going to have to fill them out by hand. But this is what your application should look like. In real life, it would be double-sided, but my printer doesn't print double-sided, and I was too lazy to feed them back in. So this is what our application should look like. And again, written in pen, which means, since it's in pen, there's no delete button or backspace or anything. So you want to really be careful what you write. Think about what you write ahead of time. If you aren't necessarily a good writer or good speller, maybe you want to type it up in Word or something first. That way you can kind of check your grammar and spelling, and you can kind of form your thoughts that way. And then once you know what you want to say, then write it down. It's quite often that I'll have to print up 2 or 3 of these for a student, maybe even more if it's somebody who has a tendency of making a lot of mistakes. So I do intend your application to be neat and clean. Why do we want that? Why do we want a neat and clean? Exactly.
Responsible.
Really? All right.
Organized.
You're going to have to do this on your own. This would be the difference between you passing or not passing this class. I'm serious about that. You're going too, Kevin? All right. So here's the thing. When there's, I mean, right now, especially for entry-level jobs, it's competitive out there. So when Jamba Juice puts a now hiring sign on their window, they could get literally 100 applicants, okay? Let's say it's your job to hire somebody. Your boss says, here's 100 applications, hire one of them. You're going to thumb through, and if you see an application that is wrinkled and someone spilled coffee on it and they wrote stuff and scratched it out and wrote other stuff, what's your impression going to be of that person? Yeah, exactly. That's going to go right in the trash. So, you know, think of this as something that's competitive. This is like running a race, and you know, you're racing with 100 other people, and it's only the person that gets first place is the one that gets the job. So, if you're going to do it, you got to do it like you're going to do it 100%. Yeah. Okay. Again, I don't know why all my borderline students are leaving today, but this is the difference between you passing or failing this entire semester.
We're having the
This is a real application, it's a fake one.
This is an actual application that I downloaded from the internet, but you aren't actually applying for Jamba Juice unless you want to. So.
Where's one in Santa Cruz? Where's the nearest one?
There's one in Target. No, that's a Safeway's got one, right? Yeah, Safeway's got a Jamba Juice. Target's got a Starbucks. Huh? All right. So we want it.
Jamba Juice says Jude.
Clean and typed. Okay. So, you know, if you say something on your application, you know, hey, you know, I is a really great employee, you know, you're not going to get hired for any job where you're going to have to communicate with other people. Yep.
I have a job, I don't need to do this.
If you already have a job,
Yeah.
what's your job now?
Little Caesars.
Little Caesars? Do you want to work there the rest of your life?
No.
Okay, then I think you need to work on this.
Hey, Juan Pablo, tú puedes ir, güey, para que me hagas un cup, güey. Like si mamá.
Okay, so even if you have a job, this is the process to get a better job. So, you know, I think Juan Pablo, given your talent and skills, you can do better than Little Caesars. You know, like maybe Papa John's.
How do you know Jamba Juice is better than Little Caesars?
What's that?
How do you know Jamba Juice is better than Little Caesars?
Well, I'm not saying that we need to apply for Jamba Juice. I'm just using this as an example. So, you know, maybe this is an application to be an astronaut. I don't know. Whatever you want to do, the application is the same. If you're applying to be an astronaut and you can't spell right, or you got poor grammar, or, you know, the thing's all wrinkled, if they can't trust you to handle a piece of paper, they're not going to trust you with, you know, a space shuttle. Any other questions?
Like, can I also do it on my computer? Scan it?
Yeah, so this is what they call a PDF document, which technically you could go through and type in. The only reason I didn't do it in this class is because for some reason the printer's not hooked up here, so you wouldn't be able to print.
You can edit it with preview, right? Preview?
I don't. So the problem is you need to save it and submit it, and I don't believe you can preview it, type on it, save it, and then submit it to me.
I can screenshot it.
The thing's done. Yeah, I don't want that. Okay. So on the application, it does ask for your social security number. Identity theft is becoming a bigger and bigger concern, so it's socially acceptable to not put your social security number. You can just put available on request, but I don't want your social security on here.
Can I close the door?
Sure.
Should we be filling this out right now?
Hold on, we'll talk a little bit more about this. So let's say it's your job to go through here and pick an application, you know, of the people that you want to go and interview. So the first thing you're going to look at is it neat and clean? Next, you're going to go through and, you know, glance at a few, you know, sort of major red flags that you're looking for. But typically for an application like this, they're going to focus on your what they call personal statements. So these are the things, you know, obviously where you live, you know, isn't that critical to them. but they are going to want to know, why do you want to work for Jamba Juice, right? That's critical.
The juice.
Yeah. So what I highly, highly recommend, what a lot of people do with these personal statements is they say what they want to get out of this. So, why do you want to work for Jamba Juice? It sounds like you're like, well, I need the money, or I want to get a job, or my parents say if I don't get a job, they're going to kick me out of the house, something. But obviously that has no benefit to Jamba Juice. So what you really want to do is focus on, well, why would Jamba Juice want to hire me? And what can I do to contribute to them? And that's really the key to getting hired, is focusing not on what you want, but obviously what the employer wants. So, I want to, I'm excited to work with a team to contribute to the health of the community, something like that, right? So I know maybe it sounds a little cheesy or something to you, but to an employer at Jamba Juice, they'd say, wow, that's awesome. That's what we're all about, is contributing to the health of the community, something like that. So you're just talking about what it is that you can, don't focus on what you are going to get, focus on what you are going to give.
And the pain.
The what? Pain? So it's no secret the reason companies have employees is obviously you are going to make the company more money than they are going to pay you, right? If they paid you more money than you made them, they would go out of business. So you really want to focus on things that you can do that are going to help them benefit. So, if I were applying for a job at Jamba Juice, I might focus on saying, hey, one thing I'm going to do to really benefit the business is whenever a customer comes in, I'm going to make a huge effort to memorize their name. That way, it doesn't take any more time. I'm just going to focus. They come in or whatever. I either introduce myself, get their name, they pay by credit card, I see their name on their credit card. Then the next time the person comes in, I'll be like, oh, hey, Jose, good to see you again. What would you like today? Or, whoever it is. So,
What about one?
so the benefit there is that I'm going to build relationships with customers to get repeat business. I'm going to really create an environment where they're going to want to get into a daily routine of coming in and getting their juice on, or whatever their phrase is there. So, so really focus on, if hired, this is what I will do for you. So focus. I don't want to see any statements at all about what you want. I just want to see statements on how you are going to contribute to the business, what you're going to do to the business.
Then the last, when we're done with this, are you gonna choose who's gonna work for you?
Potentially. Next, when it talks about your skills, so at the second page here, you're going to talk about your work history. And I understand all of you you haven't been on this world too long, so you haven't had the opportunity to really rack up 15 years of work experience yet. So if you don't have work history, we'll work on that together, but I want to see this filled out with something. I'll probably talk more about this in another slide here. Don't care about that. Okay. So you'll notice where it starts off with jobs that you've had, and then it's asking you for a start date and an end date. And if it's a job that you're currently working at, you'll just put NA, meaning not applicable, for the end date. So for example, Juan Pablo would put when he started at Little Caesars, end date would be NA for not applicable. For the current employer, he'd put Little Caesars, of course, the address of the location that he works at. Final wage is the wage that he currently makes, and you want to list that in per hour. And then the job, his job title there, and then reason for leaving. You'd also put an NA not applicable because he hasn't left there yet. Underneath that, it says duties performed. Now this part is key. We really want to focus on the skills and experience that he would have that also overlap the skills and experience needed to work at Jamba Juice. So if he's maybe have you done any like food safety certification?
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah, so that's anyone that handles food has to go through a food safety certification. It just shows you know how to handle food. You're aware of contamination. You know.
Difficult to do that.
What's that?
Yeah, very difficult to do that. They should like make.
Well, hopefully it's not difficult.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
Well,
need to-
nobody eat at Little Caesars. So yeah, it talks about you got to wear a hairnet or something, or there's all the things that you have to do just to be aware of cross contamination. If you've just been cutting raw chicken, you don't use that knife to then cut vegetables or salad or some stuff like that. Just how you're supposed to wash stuff. When you go to the bathroom, you got to wash your hands. All these kinds of, it could be obvious. Some of it's obvious, some of it isn't. But the main thing is you've gone through the course. Every food handler is required to do it. And so Jamba Juice, let's say I just had an employee quit right away. I got to hire somebody right away. I don't necessarily have the time to train them on food handler safety. So, I'm going to be, the fact that Juan Pablo has that certification is automatically going to, potentially put him ahead of the rest of the 100 applications that I got. Maybe only 20% actually have that certification. Plus, Juan Pablo has, actual work experience handling food. So that'll be good. Next, you want to focus on, has you kind of want to prove that you're sort of the Swiss Army knife of employees and that you can do a lot of different jobs. So the nice thing, what Jamba Juice is going to look at is an employee that can work a lot of different positions. So in case somebody calls in sick, they can get Juan Pablo in there to cover for them. So if you've handled money, which is a huge skill and experience, not only because you know how to do it, but if somebody else has trusted you to handle money, that means you can be trusted to handle money, which is huge. So employers need to really be able to obviously trust their employees, not to steal from them. Unfortunately, that's something that happens quite a bit. So if you have any kind of experience handling money, that's going to be a huge thing.
Experience that?
Have I experienced employee theft? Yeah, not with my business. I've been broken into and had some equipment stolen, and I've had clients that have equipment stolen. Just computer equipment. And then now people can steal stuff, on a computer virtually, hacking in and stuff as well. So if you look at the numbers of places like Kmart and Home Depot, pretty much all retail, sadly, they tend to lose a lot more money from their employees stealing than they actually do their customers stealing. So being able to trust employees is key. So being able to handle money, being able to work a cash register. So cash registers are like little mini computers nowadays. So the fact that you have computer experience doing something like CAD certainly proves that you can also learn how to use a cash register.
It's hard because I worked in the same thing as Juan Pablo, kind of.
Uh-huh.
And then they were like, "Oh, close that register." I'm like, "What?" And then I closed it, and then I was missing $100.
Yeah. So, I remember one of the first jobs I had. When I was 15. I worked at Burger King, and I worked the cash register, and I thought I did everything right. And at the end of the day, $20 was missing. So, I knew that I didn't steal the $20, but my employer sat me down. I was like, "Hey, $20 is missing from your cash register. Make sure it doesn't happen again." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Well, it's not that bad because I was missing 170 actually.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. So, that's a lot of change to have miscalculated. Nowadays the cash registers are pretty accurate. They keep a good log of how much money's going in and out. So if there's money missing, they certainly know it, and they know whose shift it happened at. So
They actually have cameras, so.
yeah, they have cameras too, but who's going to sit at a camera for 8 hours,
Me?
looking at who's if you've ever been trusted with the keys of a building, so it's been your job to either open, so say Little Caesars, before they open for customers, they have to open in advance just to start getting everything turned on and prepped and ready. So if you've either opened a business or closed a business, at the end of the day, that's a big responsibility and something that they're going to trust that you're going to show up on time, which is early before the business opens, and then have everything ready for that first customer. So those are all key skills. So really focus on what it is that they're looking for an employee. The biggest thing typically is just responsibility and reliability that you're going to show up. So if I own a Jamba Juice, I need to make sure all my employees are going to show up. If I have 2 employees that just don't show up one day, then I got to go down to the location and make juices, and that's not something I want to do as the employer. So. So reliability, dependability, and then good customer skills. Pretty much everybody in a Jamba Juice, there isn't really backroom people, in the back. They're all up front interacting with customers. So they're going to look for good people skills. Are you sociable? Are you approachable? Are you going to work with a smile on your face? Have you got a good attitude, good energy? Are you going to motivate not only yourself but the people around you to do a good job? When it's slow, you don't have a customer, are you just going to stand there and text on your phone, or are you going to grab a rag and start cleaning up your area and prep for the next rush that comes in? So these are the kinds of things that they're going to look for in employees, and they're going to be able to determine who's good and who's bad just off your application, and they'll get maybe the top 10 employees based on their skills and experience from the application, bring those in job interviews, and then make their decision from there. Okay, and then underneath there it says supervisor's name. So under duties performed, supervisor's name, phone number, and then may we contact. Sometimes you don't necessarily want your current employer knowing that you're looking for another job. It's totally appropriate. What's that?
What do you hate you hate?
If it's not working out, it doesn't work out. I mean, there's certainly, I've had some pretty crummy bosses, and I've certainly talked with students that have had a lot of crummy bosses.
I thought you were your own.
I do now, but I certainly didn't start that way. I started just like the rest of you. So.
What school, what year did you get into college? Like, did you go to university or?
Nope, just regular college. We'll stay on topic though and keep talking about you guys. So again, big section here, duties performed, and really focus on how those duties are going to benefit the employer. So if I'm working for Jamba Juice, I'm not going to say how I, built a barbecue or something. I'm not going to talk about things that are totally unrelated to the stuff at Jamba Juice. Related to Jamba Juice, how I'm going to benefit them. So what was the question, Edgar?
You can tell them your accomplishment.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the job application, again, just kind of touches on your work history, but then to talk more about yourself will be on your resume. So, again, your resume is also where you would point out that you have certification in food handling or any other certifications you've got, awards that you've got, hobbies, interests, all that kind of stuff go on there. One thing I always like to put where it says desired salary. Let's see, why don't we just take it from the top here? So obviously another part of this application is going to tell the employer, are you good at following directions, right?
Of course.
So all of you think you're good at following directions.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with the very first item. It says about you, and then underneath it asks you for your name. Sounds easy enough, right? Then right next to it, you see it says last, comma, first, comma, middle. What does that mean?
Last name, middle name, and name.
Last, first, then middle. So last, so they want you to write your last name first. Then they want you to put a comma. Then they want you to put your first name, then your middle name. Okay?
Only the initial or?
So if you already put your first name and your last name, then you already have proven to them that you cannot follow directions and your application is going in the recycling bin. Exactly. So again, I know these all sound small and trivial, but imagine that it's your job to go through 100 applications and you're just looking for any reason to throw out an application because you don't want to interview 100 people, right? You don't have time for that. So at most, maybe you have time to interview 5 to 10 people. So you're looking for people, again, first thing is how neat and clean is their application, because that's going to show how neat and clean they're going to be on the job. Next to be, can they follow directions? And are they taking this seriously? Do they take themselves seriously? Do they take this job seriously? Do they take life seriously? You know, nobody wants to hire somebody who just thinks everything's a big joke. Okay, underneath street address. So you put your street address on the top line, and then underneath it, you'll put the city, state, and zip. So it's just like you're addressing a letter to yourself. And then permanent address underneath. That would be if like you live out in the hills or something and you have like a P.O. box, so you live way out in the hills, but you get your mail at a different location. This would basically be the location that you want them to mail your paycheck to. So if it's the same as your permanent address, you can just put same.
For the address, if you live like in the front, do you put the letter last or?
So what you do is you'd put the street address. So you live at 213 Smith Drive, and then you put apartment, or the abbreviation is APT for apartment, or unit, or suite, or whatever it is.
Sweet.
Yeah, if it's like a business building, then it'd be a suite. Or I guess if you're on the top floor of a hotel, if you live there, it'd be a suite. But usually corporate buildings have suites. So it's either apartment 12 or unit 12 or something like that. Sometimes you put them on a second line, but since they only give you 2 lines, you just put them all together. And let's see. So, are you 18 years of age? Obviously, that's a yes or no. And the only reason they ask is if you're under 18, you need to get a work permit, which the school can help you get. And okay. All right, so can you, upon employment, submit verification for the legal right to work in the United States and documentation verifying your identity? So that's, birth certificate, green card, whatever you got.
Mamica,
La visa.
And all right, so then the 2 key sentences here are: what do you want? Why do you want to work for Jamba Juice? So we talked about that. So you want to think of something. If you worked at Jamba Juice, what's a part of the job that you would enjoy that would also contribute, to things? So I really want to.
fighting con los customers.
I want to work with a team. If you're a social person, you want to work with a team and meet members of the community and start a career in culinary arts or whatever it is that you want to do. So if Jamba Juice is maybe a step for you to build something that also benefits them, then you can point that out. But you don't want to say things that are just to benefit.
Can you say like I want to build a better relationship with the community?
I just want to contribute to the community. So, contribute to the health of the community. I kind of like that for Jamba Juice because that's kind of their thing. Is they act like their smoothies are healthy, but if you actually read, it's just all sugar. But they try and pitch it as something that's healthy. Yeah, I think their like chocolate peanut butter drink has like 2,000. It has more calories than a Big Mac, I think. Yeah.
Well, it's natural, organic.
It's what?
Organic.
Or yeah, I don't know about that. So, and then what do you bring to the Jamba Juice team? So here you'll focus on, again, the skills. So, I'm efficient, hardworking, dedicated, loyal. I'm going to arrive on time and prepared to work, with the right attitude every day. I'll, inspire others to be the best they can be. The things, look at the traits that you feel you have that'll be of value, and point those out.
Bring more customers?
Well, as long as you kind of spell out how you'll do that. So, say for example, if you're, a lot of you are fluent in Spanish. That's a huge asset. So, being fluent in Spanish, say you work at the Capitola Mall or something. I think they have a Jamba Juice there. They must. So, being fluent in Spanish is going to open them up to a whole community out there of non-English, people that only speak Spanish. So you have customers come in there that only speak Spanish. that's going to allow their business to easily sell and build a relationship with the very large portion of the population. So as a business owner, right, I don't speak Spanish. If I could hire somebody that would, I realize that's going to be a huge asset.
So can you say something like, I'll bring more Mexicans to Java Juice?
I would say as being bilingual in English, being fluent in English and Spanish, I'll be able to, I'll be able to bring, or I'll be able to, not attempt, but I'll be able to open the business to the Spanish-speaking community.
To gringos.
You want to say Mexicans? You want to say Spanish-speaking? Yeah, bilingual.
Yeah.
That's the way it sounds. So yeah, being bilingual, especially fluent in Spanish, is a huge asset to any business in Santa Cruz. I know there's a lot of bilingual in Watsonville, but not so much in the rest of the county. So if they can hire somebody at minimum wage, it's like having a superpower. So don't underestimate your asset. What's that? English, yeah.
Wow.
I know, it's pretty bad. I took Spanish in high school, but forgot it all.
Cool. Why don't you speak Spanish?
I should. I need you to teach me, Juan Pablo.
I don't even understand Spanish.
Oh, sure.
Que ella no entiende.
All right, so what job are you applying for? I think that's where we're at, right? You don't want to put any, you don't want to sound desperate here. So there's two things to put. One is if you're actually responding to an ad, find out what the ad is. So if they're looking for a cashier, or sometimes they call them juicers or something at Jamba Juice. In the ad or on their website, do a little research. Try and find out what they call their employees. Probably for something like Jamba Juice, if it's not a specific job you're applying for, you just saw a help wanted sign out front, maybe you just put team member, which is good. And a lot of businesses like Jamba Juice, they'll hire somebody, but they're going to train you to do a lot of different things because they want you to be flexible in what you can do. And it's kind of nice just during the day to kind of break it up. Instead of doing cashier all day, you do it for a couple hours, then you swap with somebody else, you juice for a little bit while they do something, then you go and clean up the back or do whatever, dishes. Date you can start working. I don't like to put ASAP or something, but which stands for as soon as possible. Again, kind of comes across as just being desperate. But if you're available right away, then maybe put Monday's date, or if it's the end of school, put the end of school. If you plan to start weekends, so put some kind of date there. And then desire. What's that?
What's Monday?
Monday's the 5th, 6th. And then desired salary. It's almost like a trick question, right? So what's a good thing to put there?
What?
Minimum wage.
Typically,
1 million per hour.
unless there's some really important reason to put something there, 99 times out of 100, I just recommend to put negotiable. So you just put negotiable on there.
You know experience right here?
What's that? Yeah.
Experience.
So, and that way, you're not, minimum wage. Maybe you can negotiate a higher salary than minimum wage, which I think you probably could. So, the main goal is to get an interview. Then at the interview, you really sell them on you. Then they realize, wow, that guy George, we need him here. And then we can talk about some methods of negotiating salary at another time. But I got some good methods there. And the best way to get a raise is to get one before you even have the job. And then list your special skills, athletic abilities, community involvements that you feel are pertinent for the job you're applying for. So again, that can kind of relate back to the first two things. Again, any like food handling certification that Juan Pablo has. That would certainly be key that you'd want to point out here. And then if there's something you're doing, you're on the wrestling team or something, you kind of work that in, and that, hey, you know, I have experience working with a team to accomplish a common goal, for example, which is always a great thing to do. You know, me and my wrestling team work together to become, you know, Division B champions or whatever you've done. So again, really want to let them know that you have the personable skills and can, you know, work hard, stay focused, do a good job. Okay, then underneath here, you know, they say store team members. So that's another reason why I would put in for position desired team members, because they actually use the term team member, which is just a fancy word for employee. What is your work availability? So total available hours per week. So if you're just looking for a weekend job or something, you might want to spell out, well, I can work, you know, after school and weekends. So you want to list your total availability. Even if you can't work 40 hours, you can say you're available 40 hours. You know, and these are the hours that you're available for. But you know, during school, you really only want to put in, say, you know, 10 to 20 hours, so you can still devote time to school. But in the summer or during holidays or whatever, you can certainly put in more time. And then just say your availability, and where that says from and to, I'd look on their website and see when they're open. And then assume that they actually start work an hour or so before their opening time. So if they open at 6 a.m., people are probably in there at 5 a.m., you know, getting stuff out of the freezer and getting the lights turned on and register money counted and all that stuff cleaned up. So really note, you know, the hours from start time to end time that you're available to work. And then underneath here it says, are you willing to work at other Jamba Juice locations? Why would they ask that?
They don't have like personnel this one.
What's that?
If they don't have like employees from the other one.
Yeah, so, you know, there's in Santa Cruz County, so there's a Jamba Juice and Safeway, Capitola, there's one in downtown Santa Cruz, there's one in, Soquel, one in Scotts Valley. So that's just in Santa Cruz County. There's all those different locations. So let's say an employee calls in sick in Scotts Valley. If you're willing to go from Watsonville to Scotts Valley, that's going to be a huge asset to them. So, you know, even if you got to take the bus, if that's something you're willing to do, that's going to make you a much more valuable employee to them. What? All right. Sure. So locations, you can either, you know, get on their website, see what their locations are locally, and list them. You could say, you know, Santa Cruz or Monterey counties. You know, can't. I mean, you're obviously not going to go to the one in Texas, so you know you can list.
So Santa Cruz County.
Yeah, you can put, you know, Santa Cruz. I'd probably list their locations or list the cities. So you could say, you know, anywhere between Watsonville and Scotts Valley, or Scotts Valley to Monterey, or just kind of look around, see where their locations are. All right, now we're at education, and that's for high school. So obviously you put Power Valley High School. And then list last year completed. And then did you graduate, yes or no? Obviously, if you put no, you're not going to get hired, right? Because if you can't pass high school, then you obviously can't work at a Jamba Juice. What's that?
What are you still in high school?
That's the question, right? So obviously, it's not that you guys failed out of high school. You just haven't graduated yet. Yep. What's that?
You said the printer wasn't working.
It works for me. For some reason, I'm the only one that can print.
That's racist.
I can assure you race had nothing to do with it. So you definitely want to put an explanation of why you haven't graduated high school, right? It's not that you failed out or dropped out. It's that you will graduate on X date. So just put, currently a senior, will graduate in June of this year. So you want to certainly explain that you are not a high school dropout. If you can't pass high school, would you hire yourself? That's really what it comes down to. To do what?
Second chance, Brandon.
Second.
And
Yeah.
what hour?
You have a second chance to graduate high school, which is go back to high school.
In the strawberry.
Yeah.
Will you work there?
Would what?
Will you work there in the strawberry?
On a strawberry field?
Yeah.
They make pretty good money. I've had students do it. They make it, because it's based on production. So I've had students. I mean, they hustle over the summer and they'll make, $3-4 grand.
Oh, Mr. Brenner.
Yeah.
No question. How do you know the material you applied to?
If you click on the object, it will tell you, and go to properties, it'll tell you the material. Okay.
Property?
Then obviously none of you have, well, I guess if any of you have taken a class at Cabrillo, you could certainly point that out for college. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. Even classes online are quick, easy, and free for high school students. Okay, next page. So this is going to talk about your job experience, and as we touched on, you're all young, so it's understandable that you haven't had the opportunity to have a lot of job experience. But again, would you hire you if there was absolutely nothing on here, right? So all of you have done something to contribute to somebody or society at some point in your lives. So that's what we want to touch on here. So obviously we want to start with current jobs if you have one. So Little Caesars or Kmart or Target or whatever's great. Then previous jobs that you've had. So again, any kind of legitimate jobs. Then we can start going to just weekend jobs. You mowed your neighbor's lawn for $10. You had a paper route. Focus on anything that you did, even if it was just a one-time event where you exchanged time for money. So you babysat. Somebody's willing to trust you with their children, which is their most precious asset. That has value. So focus on that. Then, you did chores for your parents and got an allowance. If that's the only experience you've got, then that's what we want to list. But you've got to have something on here, something that proves that you have been of value to somebody at some point in your lives. If you truly don't have 4 examples of that, then we're going to pull to any volunteer work you've done, community service. So your Boy Scout, church group did something, worked at a soup kitchen at Thanksgiving and fed the homeless. Anything that you've done to contribute to somebody other than yourself. You do need to have, how many community service hours do you need to have to graduate here? 40?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, so all of you should have quite a bit of stuff to put on here.
Wait, so how many do you have to get out
I think it's only like maybe 10 or 20. I don't think it's 40. Yeah. Maybe it is 40. I don't know. So obviously, community service means that you contributed to the community in something. So the only difference on this is obviously you put start and stop dates. If it was just one day, then it's the same day that you put it on there. Say who it was. For final wage, you'll put volunteer. So that implies that you were not compensated financially for doing it. And then the job, you list what it is that you did. So you served food, whatever job that you did, try to think about, well, what would an employee be called who did that, and then list that in there. So you helped build something, then you were a construction worker.
That's me right there.
Yeah, so note what you did. And then, reason for living was, it was a short-term contract or temporary work or a one-day event. Just list whatever it was there. So if you all need 40 hours to graduate, you should all definitely be able to list 4 different items on here of just volunteer work that you've done, but obviously we want to focus on things that you're actually paid for first. And by the way, volunteer work is a great way to build your resume and your job application. When I first came to Santa Cruz, I volunteered for an event called First Night Santa Cruz. It was like a New Year's Eve event. And they ended up putting me in charge of the Civic Auditorium, which was a huge venue. And I had about 300 volunteers that I had to train and supervise. So it was a huge management position. I was like 19 years old. I certainly wouldn't be able to get a job where I was supervising 300 people at that age. So it's pretty cool that when you do that kind of volunteer work, it's a great way to practice those skills and experience, and build your resume that way to prove that you have those skills. So I highly, highly recommend all of you, go out and volunteer as ways of building stuff. And there's a ton of organizations out there that would love your help, and are happy to train you and stuff to do that as well. So again, duties performed, you'll focus on the duties that you've done. And then at the bottom here is references that we can contact. So please provide at least 2 business and 2 personal. And you'll notice the first column here says B and P. So why does it say B and P?
B and P, business and personal.
Exactly. So you're going to list, is this a business contact or a personal contact? So what's the difference?
Business is
Visit?
Oh, they're gonna contact your business or they're gonna contact you?
personal references to family or.
Yeah, so ideally we don't want to necessarily list family unless it's somebody that you've actually worked for. So, I wouldn't necessarily list my uncle unless my uncle actually hired me to do something. But you could certainly list a family friend or a friend of yours that you've known a long time that you feel can talk professionally. In general, you'd want to list adults for references, just because, like, let's say I'm going to check you out, so I'm going to hire, I'm going to call, one of your references, and it's, some young kid who, is obviously just a friend of yours, and of course is going to say nice things about you. I'm going to trust an adult that's closer to my age more than I will just some other, 18-year-old. So try to pick, adults, and particularly ones that sound professional and can talk nice things about you and have something to say about you too. So, I've, known as a teacher, I've known Juan Pablo for almost a year now, and I can tell you he's always one of the first students to arrive. He's extremely punctual, pays attention in class, asks good questions, engaged, things like that. All things like I say all nice things about you.
Makes it Joe?
So yeah, you want somebody, pick a coach, teacher, some previous employer, somebody that who's going to say nice things about you, and actually has facts to say that prove you are what you say you are.
Wait,
so
what if
when Juan Pablo says that he's punctual on his application, I'm going to confirm that when they call me and say, yeah, that guy arrives early every day.
What if, you think they're gonna see nice things about you?
They don't get any of that day.
Well, obviously, you want to talk to the person ahead of time, so you're going to have kind of your 4 contacts, and there's a good chance you're going to use those 4 contacts your whole life. So you will, pick somebody and say, hey, I have students all the time call or email me saying, hey, Mr. Brenner, I'm applying for a job at Safeway or whatever. Can I use you as a reference? And I say, absolutely. And they know that, I'm going to say nice things about them. And sometimes you'll call somebody and they'll say, sure, what do you want me to say about you? So, you might want to think in advance about things you want them to say. So say, well, hey, remember how, I worked with you in this and this, and, just say I was a hard worker and I was focused the whole time, and I, worked well with others, and we accomplished our goal on time and under budget, all those kinds of things that businesses are looking for. So again, references, you'll put B or P, and they want to have 2 business and 2 personal. So the difference is business are people that you've basically worked for. Personal is just people that have known you personally, not necessarily in a professional context.
Like guiding something.
Say that again?
Like, I work in San Jose,
Okay.
and then he's not a business, he's just a guy.
So you worked for him, so that was a professional, it was a business relationship.
So
So
he's not a business, he's just
even though he's not a business, he still hired you, right?
Oh.
So he was your employer, you were the employee. That's a business relationship. So even though he didn't necessarily own a business, your neighbor hired you to mow the lawn. Your neighbor, that would be a business relationship, unless you've known your neighbor for 10 years, and it's more of a personal relationship, and you have been friends, you hang out a lot anyway, and he's like, oh hey, you mind mowing my lawn? And you said sure. That would still be a personal relationship. He could certainly talk on, oh yeah, he mows my lawn, he's got a great attitude, he always does it perfectly with attention to detail, and it's clean and neat, and I don't have to supervise him. Those are all good things, but you can also say, and I've known him for 10 years, watched him grow up, and just a great kid who's going to go on to do great things. And then last application statement, you're just stating that all the information that you've given is correct. So do not lie on your application at all. That's just wrong. We can certainly focus on the assets that you have and not touch on or delicately touch on the things that you need to that are negative. But we're not lying. We're not going to say we worked somewhere when we didn't, or that we have completed things that we haven't. I'm not going to say I have a 4.0 GPA when I don't. So, just focus on. We all have things that we're good at, and that's what we're going to focus on, and say how those are going to relate to Jamba Juice. And we all have hopes and dreams in our lives, and let's. I'm not telling you anything you don't know when I say life is hard work. So, you're either putting in hard work now to build an education and are going to use that to get a job, or you're not going to work hard now and instead, you have to work in the strawberry fields or do something else to build a life for yourself. But there's going to be hard work at some point in your life. So sooner you get on board and start doing it, the better. So again, make sure at the bottom that you sign it and date it. So again, they're looking at your ability to follow directions. Have you filled out this whole thing neatly and completely is going to be key. So something as simple as it says signature, but the person didn't sign it. That person doesn't have the attention to detail that we're going to need working at Jamba Juice. So again, think of this as a race in the sense that only first place gets the job. So if you aren't going to give it 100%, there's no point in even trying. So I want everyone to really try. It's a race in the sense that there's only one winner, and that winner is the one that gets the job. So one person gets the job. 99 people wasted their time even applying because of something as silly as they did a sloppy application, or they forgot to sign it, or they didn't follow the directions properly. So one thing that I see a lot of in applications is people not using the correct punctuation. And as texting has become more and more popular, people tend to get really, really bad habits in capitalization, right? So for example, when you say I referring to yourself,
Like the, they still need a.
okay, that's really bad. But probably the biggest mistake that I see is someone will say, I have experience in food handling, and they won't capitalize the letter I. When referring to yourself, you always need to capitalize the letter I. Now, even though all of you often text in and don't bother capitalizing the letter I, in a business situation, that is a huge, huge no-no. That just shows that you do not have the professional ability or experience to communicate effectively. So simple things like basic grammar are critical in conveying your level of intelligence to somebody at Jamba Juice. And it's fairly recent. I mean, the last 5 years, people, the younger generation, grammar has really, really gotten worse, I believe, due to texting. And so older people don't realize that that's how young people communicate. So they aren't going to realize that that's common for you. they're going to realize it as this. They're going to think this person is uneducated, and that's not true. Obviously, you guys are educated. You know that you're supposed to capitalize the letter I. Don't be lazy. Is what it comes down to. Okay, I mean, if you're typing an email, I mean, you're too lazy to hit the shift button with your pinky. I mean, come on. So really focus on correct grammar, punctuation, spelling, neat and clean. Paper should be wrinkle-free. When you hand it in, bring it in a file folder or something to keep it neat and clean, and hand it in well. And the goal of this is really to get a job interview. That's the goal of all of this. Okay, any questions at all? No, awesome. So I'll give you guys a few more moments to go through this. If you would do me a favor, when you're ready to submit it, go ahead and staple it so the 2 pages don't get lost. And bring them up here. You don't have to turn this in. It's not due until the end of spring break. So if you need more time, I encourage you to take it, but do get it turned in because this is like 15% of your grade. And then if you need another copy, you can ask me, and I'm happy to print you up one. Or if you're at home, the application is, of course, on Jamba Juice website. It's also on our class website, so you can download it and print as many copies as you need to. You're also welcome to go home and type it up and print it up if you can figure out how to do that. I can demonstrate that actually for you online here. Let's see. So if I save this, I'm just going to save it to my, let's call it Jamba app right here on my desktop. And then I'm going to open it in Acrobat. So there's a tool called the typewriter tool. I don't think I need any of this. So I'm at this add text tool. And then what you want to do so it looks good is I'm going to line everything up correctly. So I'm going to take my cursor and I'm just going to be consistent on where I'm clicking on my lines. So I'll click there. And then again, you'll put your last name, comma, first, and then there doesn't need to be a comma between your first and middle name.
You have to put your middle name?
They're asking for it, so I would put it.
Just
So whatever it has on the documentation that you're going to be giving them for your Social Security.
Whole name or just like initial?
You could put your initial, but they're not asking. They're actually saying middle. They're not saying middle initial. So if they're asking for it, give them what they're asking. Again, it comes down to following directions. And then going to my next line here, I'm going to be consistent as I was for the first. So I'm lining up my cursor so it kind of has the same height. So you'll punch in your city. So this is the nice thing about filling it out. Typing online is, if you have bad handwriting, this is going to look neat and professional, and they're going to be impressed that you spent the time. And they're really just looking for how much time did you spend on this. Did you take it seriously and really put in the time, or did you just, casually fill it out on the hood of your car, and turn it in? So if you do go on the website and do this, make sure you print it up, because I don't believe if you save it at home, if I do save as, I'm going to call this Jamba App 2, and then quit. I don't know if it's going to save my comments or not. It did. So sometimes it won't actually save what you've typed when you go to save it. So as long as it saves what you type, you can go ahead and submit it. But a lot of times students just submit a blank resume, and I say, hey, your resume or your application's blank, and they say, oh, I filled it out. So obviously if it's blank, you're not going to get credit. So print it up, make sure you have a hard copy, and then you're welcome to fill it in by hand as well. So again, just to talk about the career portfolio, this again is a required element of this class. It's 15% of your grade, so if you're currently getting a 90%, it's the difference between getting an A or a D, no, a C, 90, 80, 75, so it's the difference between a C and an A. If you're currently getting a C, there's the difference between a C and an A, so if you do it versus a C and an F.